Why did the self-help book cross the road? To find the better version of itself. I hope the rest of the video is gonna be better than that, Jesus. Okay, well I guess that sets the tone for today's video. Self-help books, pretty self-explanatory. You read them to help oneself. And I'm here to talk about why I don't think they work for neurodivergent people. That's right, I don't think they're that effective. I know, you're absolutely chomping at the bit to hear why the girl currently sitting on 90 subscribers here with her tiny YouTube channel and stupid facial piercing and floral tattoos is hating on some of the biggest and most popular books in the world. I guess I'll explain myself. If you're a boomer, you should probably leave now. The rest of this video is only going to make you mad. I'll be discussing famous and typical self-help books, Atomic Habits, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, etc. Before I jump in, really super quickly, welcome if you're new here and welcome back if you're a repeat offender. I'm Tennille. I talk about pretty much anything ADHD related because I still haven't developed a new personality yet. I hope you stick around. In my journey prior to diagnosis, I jumped on the self-growth and development bandwagon. There were some pros and there were some cons. You've definitely met a self-help guru who spews toxic positivity at every opportunity they get because, like me, they found a label, an identity to cling to, and they cannot let go of it yet. So at the recommendation of one of my former colleagues who fit this description, I read my first self-help book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Now, I wasn't in the best place mentally, and this recommendation came at a good time for me. It kicked me into a state of wanting to pursue more for myself. Unfortunately, I wouldn't realize for a while longer that I was running down the wrong rabbit hole. I've since read a bunch of self-help books, chasing the promised change to life that I craved. The change that would make me more organized, more successful, more positive, a better leader, a financially independent woman who thrived in this beautifully neurotypical world that we live in. Growing up, I was always hyper-conscious of the fact that I was wired a little differently. I'd see my peers that society deemed as more successful or more desirable than me, just absolutely crushing it and just breezing through life. So turning to self-help books was my attempt at finding those hidden gems, the gems that would give me all of these traits I'd seen other people my own age, people who were further ahead than me. But it didn't matter how many of them I read. I remained the same, just slightly more desperate with each new book to be something more, something different. But when you're an undiscovered and undiagnosed neurodiverse kid, these books are written in a language you understand, but can't seem to take action on. We all just want to fit in, be heard and validated, and these self-help books sell a dream of false hope, that if you just follow these 12 rules, you'll be everything you want to be and more. If you just do these tiny things that you forget every single day, you'll be 100% better in 100 days. Practice gratitude, mindfulness and empathy and it'll all be fine. If you're homeless, just buy a home. You can see where I'm going with this, right? We just want to be ourselves and feel like that's enough. But these self-help books we turn to make us feel insignificant and stupid because we can't follow these prescribed habits that the neurotypicals write for us. Mark Manson, the author of The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, provided a fresh take on self-help, and honestly, I enjoy his thoughts on the self-help industry, despite being an author in this genre. In an article written by the author, he says, clinical psychology doesn't exactly have a stellar track record of personal change either, but at least when you lay down on the sofa, you know you're dealing with a qualified expert who is telling you what to do based on 100+ years of research. With self-help, God only knows where half of these people came from. It's a market-driven rather than a peer-reviewed industry. The onus is on the reader to sift through the material and decide what's credible and what's not. And that's not always easy to do. Now, I won't break down the entire article, but there are 2 points that he speaks about that really resonate with me. Number 1, self-help is often another form of avoidance. And to paraphrase, people perceive their problems in unique ways. Some examples he uses are, I feel tired and lazy all the time, I eat too much sugar, my boss hates me, etc. And these feel like real issues, and they probably affect you a little. But more often than not, the problem stems from a deeper anxiety or unconscious feelings of shame or unworthiness. And when someone is driven to self-help over deep-rooted anxiety, one of these 2 things usually happen. They replace one bad thing with another, slightly healthier thing. Someone who drinks too much and is unable to hold down a job may switch to doing 5 hours of yoga a day, but still cannot hold down a job. Or, and this one resonates with me way more than I care to admit, they use self-help books as a form of avoidance. Mark uses classic dating advice here. I don't know how to ask the person I like out on a date, so I'll read 4 self-help books about it and feel really accomplished. Reading those books suddenly feels more important than actually asking someone on a date. This sounds familiar because if you're like me, it's analysis paralysis, and we get stuck there every fucking week. Now, the second point he discusses is self-help is a contradiction, and the reasoning for this is short. The first and most fundamental step to growth in any capacity is to admit to yourself that you are okay as you are. It's self-acceptance, and no one can actually help you do this, except for yourself. If you can't accept who you are now, you're not going to be able to change a thing. Now, it's not to say these books don't have their place. Self-help books are built based on a framework that works for a particular type of person. The way a religious person follows a Bible, there's a belief system that's tied to a person's values and identity, and this overly rewritten book provides guidelines for them to live by. I kind of feel like self-help books offer the same kind of thing for certain people, self-realization and a guide to adhere to, and that's great for them. If it helps you be the best version of yourself that you're chasing, you just keep doing you. Just keep it out of government and other people's autonomy. Ableism is the discrimination of and social prejudice against people with disabilities based on the belief that typical abilities are superior. At its heart, ableism is rooted in the assumption that disabled people require fixing and defines people by their disability. Like racism and sexism, ableism classifies entire groups of people as less than and includes harmful stereotypes, misconceptions, and generalizations of people with disabilities. Now, ableism is a big topic and it applies here. These books are often written by neurotypical authors who view the world with a mentality that if everyone could just do and think like them, all the neurodivergent people would be normal. And that is the very definition of ableism, regardless of intention. They insist on the one-size-fits-all approach, and when it doesn't work, we're lazy and problematic and unwilling to put in the work to succeed. And this couldn't be further from the truth. Most of us have spent half our lives trying to mask the person we actually are. Their solutions offer oversimplifying our struggles and overlooking our strengths. An example of this I really like in Atomic Habits is when the author discusses how your habits shape your identity change and vice versa. He says, and I quote, "True behavior change is identity change. You might start a habit because of motivation, but the only reason you'll stick with one is that it becomes part of your identity." He then goes on to say improvements are only temporary until they become part of who you are, using eating healthier and going to the gym as examples. So here's why I don't like that as an ADHDer. We aren't known for having incredible habit-making abilities. We are dopamine seekers. The thing that grabs our attention is whatever we find the most interesting. We don't have control of that. This isn't new information to us. When we're told to set your house in perfect order before criticizing the world, you're setting everyone up for failure. Perfect isn't attainable, and the things that are neurotypical are likely to deem as perfection are insignificant, undesirable, and instantly forgettable in a lot of neurodivergent people's eyes. For example, making my bed every morning. I understand why people do it. It sort of makes sense, but remembering to actually do it? Fucking impossible. I'm either out of the house each morning before my partner, so I'm not going to make it while someone is still in the bed, or I get out of bed and I don't go near it again. I've already started my day, and I'm already running late because I had a life-changing idea when I was in the shower and I had to tell someone about it before I forgot. My life isn't better or worse because I don't make my bed every day. I'm not impacted by it. But some life coach out there right now is currently on Canva designing an Instagram post telling you that this is one of those non-negotiables they engage with every day that sets them up for success. Many people walk through life in a cognitive slumber, blindly following the norms attached to their identity. I'm not a morning person. I'm always late. I'm terrible at maths. And what I find interesting with this segment of the book is that these beliefs often don't come solely from a self-realized place. It's a learned state of being. I'm terrible at maths, for instance. I'm what you'd describe as a creative. I didn't just decide one day I was bad at math. It wasn't a choice. I've struggled with everything that wasn't basic, counting, and addition for as long as I could remember. You can explain it however you want, but it still doesn't make sense. As a kid, this was an ongoing issue for me. And then, a tutor finally showed me a method for adding bigger things up in a way that worked for me, using pen and paper. I was by no means amazing, but it started getting better. And then, I moved to a different country. And although maths is the same everywhere you go, my teacher didn't like how I did it. And I was told, we don't use that method here, you have to do it like this. So guess who went back to not understanding anything and feeling ashamed because they couldn't do something the way others did it? It was me. You strip away the confidence from a 9-year-old. They don't know how to self-advocate. Hell, they don't even know why they're different yet. They just know it's time to be quiet and avoid doing this thing that makes them feel shitty at all costs. I'm not a morning person. Why is this considered a bad thing? I naturally feel more awake later in the evening. It's when I'm most creative. It's when I'm the most engaged. The order I do things in a day doesn't affect you. So if you get up and go to the gym at 5 a.m., I'll enjoy my sleep and go at 5 p.m. instead and still achieve all the things you achieve in a day. I'm just on a different cycle. Stop trying to make me the same as you. Now I'm going to rip a few more of my least favorite quotes from Atomic Habits out, and then I'll wrap this video up. But if you've got like 1 sec and a spare hand, please like this video to appease the ducks. Suffering drives progress. Your actions reveal how badly you want something. Reward is on the other side of sacrifice. Self-control is difficult because it is not satisfying. Being poor is not having too little, it is wanting more. Now, out of context, this is some really toxic bullshit. Fuck, even in context, it's not that much better. If I could go back 7.5 years and tell the dirt poor student version of me that the thing that was making me poor was from wanting more, I think she'd actually beat the shit out of me. You're allowed to want more out of life than what you have. Go live on $36 a week and be too scared to turn on your heater for more than a few hours a day out of genuine fear your power bill will go up, and then dare to think that wanting a little more for yourself is a bad thing. Maybe go to bed instead of eating dinner sometimes because wanting more for yourself in these levels of poverty is such a bad thing. Fuck off, you masochist. Self-control is difficult for ADHDers because we lack impulse control. It's not because we don't want to put in the steps to attain the thing we want. Our brains just aren't wired to always be grinding. Blindly following advice not written by us, that's for us, is going to keep us in shame spirals and constantly seeking something that's just not reachable. It'll keep you feeling lost and unworthy, never reaching your actual potential. We are worth so much more. We are insanely creative, we are great problem solvers, we are amazing at finding stupid loopholes, and the emergency service sectors would be way more understaffed than they are if we weren't commonly known for being amazing in a crisis. There's a reason people with ADHD are way more likely to work for themselves and start a business or 3. We're integral to the world, even a neurotypical one. And that's what I'm trying to do here, to create the kind of space that would have been insanely helpful to me throughout my life. Somewhere that helps you feel understood and acknowledges your struggles without judgment. Without fully dumping on all of the self-help books that are out there. Like anything in life, you've got to take the good with the bad. Some of it might be helpful, but it's often like panning for gold. There's a lot of shit before you find the tiny golden flakes, but this is a stupid metaphor and not actual gold, so you get to determine what you think is valuable, what you think can actually benefit your life, and something you can actually take and implement in a way that's meaningful to you. And before people ever go at me, I've actually read most of these books, Atomic Habits a few times even, but I still had to go back and highlight things because I do not retain any of the information as hard as I try. I've read all of them except for these. The irony of essentialism is that it's about exactly this. The cornerstone of essentialism is the never-ending task of identifying the less important things in your life to cut out, and doing what's left over to a higher standard. Reject the notion that we should accomplish everything and choose instead specific directions in which you can excel. Can you imagine telling an ADHDer to just prioritize things that are important? Like telling a depressed person to just be happy or an anxious person to stop worrying. I wasn't committed to reading 274 pages when you can summarize the key point of the book in less than 2 sentences. I guess that makes me quite the essentialist. Thanks, Greg. We aren't broken, we're just different, and that's okay. Are there any life-changing books you've read and just haven't been able to get into? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to have a discussion about it. Or, even better, if you have some books that are actually neurodivergent friendly that you love, I'd love to hear about these too. Consider sharing this video with the person that keeps recommending you self-help books. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you in the next one. Thanks.